All right, let's go ahead and get started. You are in Ballroom A to make sure you're where you think you are. If you think you're in Ballroom B or C, feel free to get up and leave and I won't be offended. We're today going to talk about noobs, not to be confused with nudes. We'll get started with who I am. I'm Zodiac. I'm Matt Lorimer. I don't know if you guys have met me or not. If you have not, I've been with SAINTCON for a long time. Been attending since like 05-ish. Been on the committee since like 2010-ish. I don't know for sure. Came from higher education, worked there for about 17 years. Now I work for a local VAR doing as an engineer on their information security team, doing configuring, deploying, and selling whatever solutions are needed, and doing some consulting with that. Not great, not terrible, kind of mediocre. That's setting the bar about where you want this presentation to be. If you're expecting more than that, I'm sorry, the badge talk is a couple doors down. Today's talk, like I just mentioned, this is not the badge talk. If that's what you're looking for, head on down the hallway a little bit. This is definitely aimed at people new to infosec. This is for people getting their career started, trying to make a jump into infosec, trying to jump into things, and just not. This is not going to be a deep dive. We've got 30 minutes. It's short, like it says there. There's not a ton of time. I'm not going to give you a list of tools. I'm not going to give you a list of like try hack me and all the sites to go and build up your skill set. I'm not going to go through and do a deep dive. This is kind of just the ramblings of an old person who has talked to a lot of people getting started in infosec and making that transition in their life. This talk is a complete lie. I wrote the synopsis when Chris Surashram asked me to do a presentation on InfoSec 101. I went ahead and wrote that little synopsis you read to decide you wanted to come here. And then quite a bit later, a couple hours ago, I wrote the presentation. And they don't exactly match up 100%. But I hope this is useful to you, and it is maybe a complete lie, but hopefully it's a useful lie. Like I mentioned, it's not tools. There's not a ton of information about those in here, but I'm just gonna go through and talk. And honestly, if you have questions, let's ask questions. Let's talk. If you have comments and want to go into more depth, I've done this. I've had this conversation, but I'm not the only person in the room that's had this conversation, and that's kind of one of the points I want to get out as we go through this. So the first thing I want to talk about is get a mentor. If you're new, if you're trying to get into InfoSec, if you're trying to get started, if you don't know what you're doing, if you want to transition and go to a new field, you've been doing something like working in the SOC and you want to get into GRC, like the compliance pieces. First, you should seek mental health because no one wants to get in compliance. But if you do decide if compliance is your thing, then find a mentor. Find someone who's been doing that. Find someone who is experienced in the field and who will talk to you. And all the time the question is, how do I get someone who will be my mentor? How do I find someone? You did the first step. You showed up to SAINTCON. Second, you show up to, if you don't want to show up to SAINTCON, show up to one of the local communities or groups. In Salt Lake, you've got 801 Labs. Up north in Logan, they've got DC 435. You've got SAINTCON Discord. You've got 801 Labs Discord. There are thousands. Black Hills InfoSec has a fantastically active Discord, and they do a great job. They have a whole channel dedicated to seeking mentors and finding mentors. Look to the community and find people. You don't have to be best buddies with whoever this person you choose for your mentor, but you do have to have a relationship. You do have to talk to them. I've had people walk up to me that have never talked to me in their entire life, and they don't even introduce themselves. They're like, hey, I need a mentor. Will you be my mentor? And I'm like, it's not quite how this works. I'm happy to help people, and I'm happy to give advice, but there is a relationship in mentors and mentees. And so find a mentor, and as you find the mentor, build a relationship. Don't just go up and expect and hope for a mentor. Anyway. Next one here. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no one that knows everything. There's not a single person in the world that knows everything, and a lot of times in InfoSec, we feel like we have to have all the answers. And people a lot of times talk about how they feel inadequate, and if they don't have answers, they feel like they're not delivering and they're not doing good enough. And honestly, I see questions as someone who's curious, and curious tells me you actually care about the field. I'm way more likely to help someone get a job, be their mentor, do whatever, if they're curious and interested and care about the field. If I say things that are over your head and you're like, yeah, I'm like, either he knows everything and I have nothing to offer this guy or gal, or they don't give a crap and they're just nodding their head and it doesn't matter what I say, the response is going to be the same. So don't be afraid to ask questions. It actually shows interest. It shows passion. It shows skill. This is going to be a short presentation. It's 30 minutes, but we're going quick. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to talk to people. And anyway, we'll save time for questions at the end. But if you talk to them and ask questions and go into detail, one of the things that we often talk about is when I was hiring people, when I was getting people in for a job, I can teach you how to do things, but I can't teach you how to care. And so one of your jobs as a person applying for a job, as a person trying to get into something, is to show that you care. How do you show you care? With interesting questions. I got an eye chart for you here. This is, most people feel the route into InfoSec is this. This is updated August of 2022. This is the current certifications within the field of information security. And actually, if you're thinking about any certification, you need to write down that URL or just search Paul Jeremy with an I and his certification roadmap. Because whether you want to get certs or not, this is this shows you a ton about what certs are available and what's out there. I love how it's broken into categories, whether it's operations, assessment, risk management. But I'm here to say certs have their place, and it depends on who you are as to whether they have a place in your life. If you're brand new, you have no experience, you have no skill, or you have no background, you have nothing to put on your resume, a cert might be good. But honestly, you're going to start down here towards the bottom of this chart. So if you're in that category, you start looking down here and like, oh, maybe I want to get, if you go to the actual website, if you Google that, all of these are pop-ups. He tells you what it is. He has links to deeper information, and he even gives you the price of the test and stuff on this chart when you go to the website. Like this chart is outstanding. So if you're thinking about search, check it out. But it's great. But look towards the bottom of this chart and start looking at some of those charts or some of those. But honestly, I'm here to say, I don't know anyone who's gotten a job purely because of certifications. Certifications are not the answer to a transition and an entrance into information security. If you have experience, use your experience. If you don't have experience, maybe get some certs, but better get some certs and some experience. And that experience doesn't have to be a job. I've interviewed and hired people that their experience consists of, well, I've got, how many guys have visited Home Labs here? The Home Labs booth downstairs on the first floor? Okay, so that right there, that's experience, that's passion, that's interest. That's all the things wrapped into one. If I have someone that has 4 certs, if I'm a hiring manager, I have someone that has 4 certs, and I have a guy or a girl who's been running Suricata and Zeek and in their basement on their home internet connection, and they're like, I want to get into doing incident response, and I want to get into threat detection. Well, let's see, one guy has a sticker, and one of these applicants has a sticker, and this girl over here has been doing it for 2 years in her basement. Tell you who I'm going to hire. I don't care that they've been working at McDonald's. They've been doing this for 2 years, and I don't care that no one paid them to do it. They've been doing it. And so certs are important, but they have their place. I guess that's the moral of the story. There's a great resource if you want info about certs, but more than if you want info about certs, know that they have their place. Some jobs, some things, you'll need your CISSP to get them. So there are some places for various reasons, organizational policy, for compliance. There are several of these that are needed for certain types of audits and checks and compliance reasons. So certs are great, and you should look at them and you should consider them, but they're not a magic bullet. It's a lot of times you'll go to school and they're like, if you get these 2 stickers next to your name, you'll get a job for $180,000 as an 18-year-old kid out of school. Not going to happen, sorry. They're not a magic bullet. Wow, sorry. So this part here, just next thing, we talked about getting experience, get a job. Get a job in the field. And this is a couple of fold. We talked about the community and building the relationships. When you have a job, you build a lot of relationships. Get a job related to the field you're trying to get into, even if it's just like, you want to get into infosec, and the only job you can get is the person who configures printers at the help desk. Guess what? You're going to meet somebody who 2 years down the road is going to be hiring a SOC analyst, and now all of a sudden you have that relationship, and you go to them and say, hey, I want to be a SOC analyst. And they say, great, let's go. You've got the experience, you've got things built up. But it's not easy like this, so why don't I just strap on a helmet, job helmet, squeeze down in a job can, and fire off in Jobland where they grow on little jobbies. It's true, jobs can be hard to get, but that's why things are important. You need to pay attention. You need to look at how you do it. You need to look at how you apply. I can't tell you how many times as I was hiring positions, I'd put on job requirements, and I would get people who I was pretty sure who were qualified for the position, and half the job requirements were never mentioned on their resume or on their cover letter or anything else. Be complete. Be thorough. Show the person you care. If you literally copy and paste the same resume to 100 people, do you really think these intelligent managers are stupid enough that they won't know that's what you did? Treat them with respect. And treat them with the dignity you expect. I must be doing good because my own son just walked out of my presentation. I won't be offended if anyone does. I'm not even offended he did. It's okay. So treat them with respect. Give them time. They're going to give you time to consider you as an applicant. Give them time to actually address what they're looking for and reach out to them. Find people you know within the company. Reach out to them. Do a little OSINT, like open source intelligence gathering, to see who you know. Reach out to your community networks. I've seen more than once on Discord, on the Utah Saint Discord, where people are like, hey, I'm applying for a job at company X. Does anyone know someone who works there? Pretty much every time I've seen that, someone says, oh yeah, I work there, or my brother works there, or I met this lady at SAINTCON 2 years ago and she works there. Let me give you her number. If you get someone to refer you into the organization, that often gets you past the first 2 steps of filtering. That's 100% worth 5 minutes of your time. Find someone you know there. Then take 5 more minutes to customize your resume for that specific job posting and listing. All the people that have jobs are now looking at me saying, you weren't kidding when you said noobs. The other part here is you have to apply. Go find the job, do the application, put in your resume, put in the work. But as you do the application, show your interest and show your passion. Your job, not every hiring manager is different. Everybody does things their own way. So I'm not trying to say there's one silver bullet, but this is general rules. As you go there and as you work with, or as you try to find these, look for the jobs, use your network, find those, apply, and don't be afraid. A lot of times people are like, well, they're looking for, they want level X, and I don't have that. Turns out in today's job market, there's a lot of compromises being made by hiring managers. Don't lie about yourself. Don't say you can do things you can't. But also don't be afraid to throw your resume out there. I mean, what's the worst thing that happens? They say no. Guess what? You don't put your resume out there, the answer is no. You probably won't hear back. Don't be offended. You'll send out 800 resumes and you'll hear back from 750 of them. Or you won't hear back from 750 of them. That's okay. Okay, I hope you don't have to send out 800 resumes to get a job. I hope it's more like 15 or 20. But you won't hear back from a lot of them. They'll ghost you. That happens. HR does it. The hiring manager does it. Sometimes it's malicious. Sometimes it's lazy. Sometimes it's bad practices. It could be whatever. Just assume the best and assume people are trying to help. But this is the other one here. A lot of people early in their career, in fact, I had a conversation a couple days ago with somebody who was like, well, I've got a job, but it's not a very good job, and I can't really look for a job because I've got this. No, this is even trades, man. I put in work, you give me money. At the end of that transaction, we're done. This is a transactional trade. Do you really think that if your work thinks you're not worth what they're paying you, they will just keep paying you forever? No. If you think that they're not paying you what you're worth, should you keep working for them forever? No. If you love your workplace, then talk to them and say, hey guys, I'm not happy. Go to your boss, go to HR and say, I'm not happy. I could be making X amount. And they might say, get a competitive offer. And that might be the dumbest thing they ever did, because that pushes people into new jobs if they want a competitive offer, but that's their choice. You love the place you work, get a competitive offer, you might just like the new place better, and that's the way they work. But be loyal to your company and be good to them, but realize that this is a transaction. You give them work in exchange for money. They give you money in exchange for work. After this transaction, you owe them nothing and they owe you nothing. So if you're in a job that's below what you want to be, what you think you should be, where you hope to be, then don't be. Polish your resume. Go look for a job. Go out on networking sites and say, hey, I'm currently a junior SOC analyst and I'd really like to get into threat intelligence. I'd really like to get into incident response. Great. Let's do that. Find a new job. And don't feel guilty about it at all. Zero guilt in this transaction, because that's what it is, a transaction. And I think the last couple are extra leftover slides from, whose slide is it anyways? These last ones here, one of the things I was going to talk about is some of the people who have a newer infosec practice at their organization. Often I have people who are somewhere who has a very immature infosec program or who are just starting. You get thrown into an organization that you're the first information security professional in the organization or something happens. This is pretty true. The breaches will continue until security policy actually improves. I see a lot of people that are starting a program, running around and doing things they've seen other places. Ooh, this person has a vulnerability scanner. Okay, I'm going to get a vulnerability scanner. Ooh, this person has an email gateway. I'm going to get an email gateway. These are great things. But if you're just doing things you see somewhere else, you're not actually fixing a problem. You're just throwing Band-Aids around and hoping for the best. So if you're doing this, if you're starting a new program, you need to start strategically. And this is a part of training and showing the interest. The best way to do information security strategically is to choose a framework. And that's a nasty word, and I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to go deep. The two things I'll say about frameworks, the biggest things are CSF, the NIST cybersecurity framework, and CIS controls. NIST CSF is a PhD thesis. If you love those, go NIST CSF. If you hate PhD thesis and you prefer novel, go CIS controls. If you have regulatory reasons, go NIST CSF. Otherwise, go CIS controls. Go read about those, learn more on your own. One of them can fit on a 4-page brochure. One of them can barely fit into an 800-page document. Like, you choose which of those sounds more fun to you. Anyway, and the last one here, this kind of goes with what I said about information programs. If you do things, you might have API security, you might have app security, you might have firewall, but if you don't have a framework, you forget about the databases. You forget about some of the sensitive pieces of your thing. This is why strategy matters. This is why a framework matters. This is why a cohesive plan and an organizational structure matters. So I'm going to stop here, mostly because I'm out of funny gifts, because I put them all into whose slide is it anyways instead of this. But I'm going to stop here, and I just want to, any other tips, questions, comments, thoughts, anything else from anyone else here? Do we have a house mic? All right. So shout out loud, and I'll say it again if you have something to say.
Do you have a particular coding language that you would recommend for beginners who haven't had much experience but would also still be useful out in the field?
Java forever. Not Java. Honestly, Rust is this shiny. I'm not a programmer. I'm not the one to ask. But what I see is everyone gets excited about Rust, but everyone always comes back to Python. It always comes back to Python. Go is shiny. Rust is shiny. In a year, they may or may not be here. I guarantee Python will still be here. Okay, Rust looks pretty. It's not shiny. It looks pretty. You're right. Fair. I'll take it. I would say Python is really good. It's easy to learn. It's easy to step through. It is a consistent thing within the industry. That's where I would go. Anyone's welcome to disagree with me on that, but that's my knee-jerk response. On the back, I can kind of see a hand through the bright sunshine. Honestly, what I do when that's a fantastic question. You asked how I customize resumes for jobs, and what I do is I sit down with the job description in one window on the left side of my monitor, and on the right side of my monitor I have my resume, and I go bullet point by bullet point by bullet point of what the job requirements are for that job. And on the right side on my resume, I write my experience with that bullet point, and it might be I read a white paper. It might be I labbed that up, and I leave off the last night part of the I labbed that up. It might be I've been doing that for 10 years, but every single bullet point on the job requirement, I write an answer on the right. And then at the end, I take my list of all those bullet points, and I put them in a master resume. And my master resume is like 3 times longer than it needs to be. And then I get to the next job description, and I say, oh, look, I have these 4 bullet points in this master resume. These ones are coming back over into this custom resume. Oh, but I don't have one for this. So I write another one, and then I add that to the master resume. And that way, every single resume or every single job, all the requirements listed are addressed in the resume for that company, but I'm not killing myself because I have the master resume with all of my skill sets and what I've done. So I've discovered this is cultural. There are some cultures. I've received a 28-page resume before. And I was like, what in the heck is this? And it had their high school transcripts and their college transcripts and like 3 pages on the things they studied in high school and everything else. And so it's cultural. My personal preference, it depends on where you are in your career. If you're starting, it should be 1 page. If you're 10 years in, if you're 12 years in, it could be a couple pages. But again, respect the time of the hiring manager who's in there to hire. If you have 2 pages of bullcrap, don't even bother. If you can filter it down to 1 page, filter it down to 1 page. Shorter is... The hiring manager's you. Think about what would I want to read if I had 20 of these to read tomorrow. I want shorter.
If you're over 1 page, make sure to cut out things that are not related to it.
Yeah, and this is where the job description comes in really helpful. You read what they're looking for and make sure, if they're looking for governance, risk, and compliance, it's a GRC position, and you're like, I've played with all these red team tools, and I know Bloodhound, and I know how to do crack map exec, and I know how to do all. They don't care about that for GRC. So, yeah, whittle it down to what matters. Any other? All right, right here. I have a cheat right here. I don't want to talk to people. You don't want to talk to people? You put in Discord that you have mini badges, and people will hunt you down. People will come and find you, and they will talk to you. But really, it depends on the person. Whether if you prefer text-based, then spend more time building your network in Discord. And then once you have the relationship, then meet the people in person. But a lot of it's this cliche answer: step out of your comfort zone, do things that are hard. But like, there's no magic thing you haven't heard 100 times. Talk to people, and it's going to be hard, and it's not going to feel natural. But that's the beauty of being somewhere like this. Realize we're all the same. I mean, everyone finds ways to be different from everyone else and to say, you're not like me. Find ways to be like other people, because really, you're probably 98% like every single person in this room. So let's acknowledge the 98, not focus on the 2%, and say, I hate talking to people, so do you, so let's kind of be awkward next to each other. Like, let's call it fair.
During this conference, especially because it's 4 days long, sit at the largest table you can and speak to everyone at that table, especially those. Don't speak to the people you work with or the people you know. Talk to everyone else.
So I don't know if everyone heard that. He said, particularly at SAINTCON, this is great advice. That's from Kampf, who's also on the committee at SAINTCON. But during SAINTCON, sit down at the largest table and make an effort to at least say hi and get to know the name of every single person at the table. Don't just sit by your coworkers for every single meal and everything you do. And it'll pay off. It'll pay dividends. And honestly, 80% of the people you talk to, you won't talk to again. You'll forget their name. You won't know what's going on. But there'll be one, and they might become your mentor. I have my job because I sat down at a table at SAINTCON and I talked to the guy next to me. Literally, I said I was looking for a job, and he said, come work for me. Come work with me. And that's why I'm here. So I think we have 3 more minutes. Am I supposed to be done now, 3 minutes? All right. If there's any other questions? Sorry, I'm trying to not. Oh, right back here. You said the NICE what framework? Okay, NICE workforce framework, NICE, so like an acronym, workforce framework. I'm not familiar with that, but it says it goes through all the cybersecurity roles and functions and figure out that. So, all right. Looks like people are coming in for the next presentation. Oh no, he's not raised done. Looks like people are coming in for the next presentation. So thanks everyone for coming. I hope there was at least something useful in there for you.